Started already. Good morning, everyone. It's Carol Lourie, and I am so excited and happy to be here with my dear friend and colleague, Thais Harris, who is a holistic nutritionist with a specialty in breast cancers and working with women and helping them feel really great in their bodies, which is something that I absolutely want you to feel too. So welcome, Thais, and thank you for being here, and tell us a little bit about how you ended up where you are with your level of expertise.
Thank you so much, Carol. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for having me on the show. So I am a holistic nutritionist. I've been on this field for a decade, and I didn't know I was going to be working with people in health crises, and especially going through cancer treatment when I first graduated. But it so happened that my father developed a very aggressive cancer. And so I was slated to go visit him. My family lived in Brazil. And so I was going to visit him after graduating. And we had all these plans. He had developed diabetes, type 2, and he had some other health issues. And so I was really excited to kind of go home and spend some time with him, working with him nutritionally. And I got there, I had 9 days with him before he passed.
Oh.
So that is really the main thing that sparked me into really researching nutrition for cancer prevention, nutrition during cancer treatment, how you can help quality of life after treatment through, the foods you eat, the practices that you have, the way you communicate with yourself and your cells.
Such a important topic.
Yeah, so that's how I got here. And I worked for an amazing organization called Ceres Community Project for 5 years. And they're in Northern California. They have about 11 affiliates throughout the country, and they provide meals for people facing a health crisis. So about 85% of the clients at Ceres were in cancer treatment, at the time I was there. And so it just became something that was really near and dear to my heart, to work with people that were recovering and that could really understand how much of an impact food had, both on their survival, on their quality of life, and even in helping with some of the side effects from treatment.
Absolutely. So let's break it down a little bit. First of all, it's a beautiful background, and I'm sorry and glad you only had 9 days with your dad. Thank God you had those 9 days, but obviously that's not enough.
Yes.
So as they say in my religion, may his memory be for a blessing. But let's break it down. You talked on a lot of topics about how nutrition can help with side effects of treatment, which is really one area that I'm going to be launching next year. My Empowered through Recurrence, my Empowered Through Treatment protocol and group coaching. But right now we're in Empowered Against Recurrence. So let's talk about how we can use nutrition to reduce the risk of recurrence, because that's a big focus of the work that I do. And then I'd also like to talk about, and you mentioned how women talk to themselves, and that's also a topic near and dear to my heart. There isn't enough attention on that and intention that we give ourselves. So let's start out with using nutrition to reduce the risk of recurrence, because that's so important.
Yeah. And, more recently, over this last year, I also started working with DNA information. And so using a partner called Self Decode for looking at DNA labs to really get sort of a functional lens on what is happening in the body. Because as we know, sometimes people feel bad when they get sick because of ways to prevent. And I feel like even if somebody does everything right, quote unquote, disease can still happen, right? And things like cancer, if there are imbalances in the body, even if we're leading like a healthy, happy life, that can still happen. And so I find it really...
Excuse me, we got to just take a breath.
Yeah, sure.
That's a very important statement. Even if you believe and you know that you're leading a healthy and happy life and you're, quote, doing everything right, you can still end up with cancer
Yeah,
because only 15% of cancers are genetic.
right.
So that means the other 85%, which is a large amount, are metabolically and environmentally triggered, right? The epigenetics get turned on and you end up with cancer. So that you have a lot of control over those components of what brings cancer into your body and your life. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I
Yes.
wanted to bring that important aspect out. Women need to understand that.
Yes, it's so important. And I feel like the reason why I bring in DNA into my work with clients is not necessarily about, looking for genetic variants that are cancer specific, but really looking at things like, some people may have a propensity for needing more iron or a certain type of B vitamin, or there are certain traits that you can see even related to anxiety that can come up in those genetic variants. So if when I'm working, I find that it's always about first finding the priority areas that we want to target. So things like soothing the nervous system, may be a priority for somebody. And here we are, we're working on nutrition, we're looking at food for supporting life. And we're understanding where are these imbalances. So maybe it's soothing the nervous system, maybe it's supporting thyroid health, and then maybe covering some of the gaps in nutrients that person might be more, open for having a deficiency. So we cover those. And of course, when we can compare this DNA information with current labs, sometimes we can even see real time, if somebody has a propensity for needing more iron, and then we see that in their labs, they're actually low on ferritin. Like you can just kind of start putting these puzzle pieces together so that we can support health from like a holistic point of view. And from there, we really start looking at protein, what is the intake of protein for that person? What time of day are they eating their protein? As you know, the time of day and when we eat, where it's all connected, our circadian
Absolutely.
rhythm.
So let's talk about that for a minute because I don't think anybody outside of intermittent fasting, which I think is a very important aspect of health, I don't think people understand the circadian rhythm of when it's best to eat.
Beautiful. And um, of course, everybody's unique and may have, different needs, but ultimately we really are connected to the sun in a very basic way. It's like the notion of macrocosms and microcosms, and we contain it all inside of us, outside of us. And it's a theme that Ayurveda, which is something I've studied as
I love
well,
Ayurveda.
um, really talks a lot about, right? So we are really connected to the sun. So when the sun is highest in the sky, so that noontime, 1 o'clock, that's when our fire of digestion is the strongest. So we're really able to digest foods better. And so I feel like many, many cultures will have a larger breakfast, lunch, and a smaller dinner. And
Right.
in the US, often we have this large dinner, which I think
Right.
unfortunately does set up issues for our
I
metabolism.
agree that you shouldn't be eating, like some people eat really late at night and then go to bed an hour later, and all that food is just sitting there. And when we need our fuel mostly in the daytime. So make lunch your main meal would be great. But unfortunately, we're not home for that, most of all us. But a lot
Right.
of people are working from home now because of how life has changed post pandemic.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's true. And I feel like even with intermittent fasting, for example, when I am helping clients, if that's something they want to do, we really talk about, still having breakfast, but then eating less later in the day, or sort of, taking those hours at night versus waiting to start eating until, say, 1 p.m. So I do work with that a little bit just so we can be in that natural rhythm.
So you have people eat, I'm sorry, tell me what your schedule for intermittent fasting is.
So if we are working with intermittent fasting, then we'll stop eating by like 5 p.m.
Mhm.
So that they can actually still wake up and,
Oh, eat
be able to
breakfast.
eat
Okay. Yeah,
breakfast
cool.
within 2 hours of waking and not going too long without fuel
Mhm.
for their day to begin. Yeah.
And you have them fast for how many hours generally?
I 12 to 14. Obviously, 12 is sort of a more generalized approach. Even if
Yeah,
somebody's not
not quite
intermittent
enough
fasting, we
physiologically,
still
right.
right. But then I'll do 14 hours. I don't go much more than that in my own
Mhm.
practice with the way I work with people. But if somebody comes to me and they actually want to do longer hours, then I support them in that.
Yeah, I don't support more than 16.
Yeah, I think
13
that's
to
smart.
16. I mean, that there's research. You pay attention to the research. The benefits start 13, 14, 15, 16, and then much longer than that, you're in a whole different physiological space.
That's right. And then, yeah, I always considered what might be taken in as stress for the body, at which point do you then leave the benefits and start stressing your
Mhm.
system? So, yeah. Um, but yeah, so when to eat, being this important thing, and really for people to understand their body, sometimes a shift needs to happen because some people are used to eating late at night and don't feel hungry in the morning. And so we really look at that as like, is this really your metabolic type? Is it something you just
Right.
condition yourself to
Important.
do?
That's important. Yeah. If you eat a lot at night and you wake up not hungry in the morning and then you don't eat till noon, and by that time your blood sugar is really low and then you're starving, you just grab the what's ever available, you're setting yourself up for unhealthy patterns. But as you mentioned, you need to figure out if that's somebody's own rhythm, right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't
And
like eating a lot at night and waking up in the morning not feeling well. It doesn't work for who I am.
right, and for me too, and we know too for some of the research on circadian rhythm and what it says about, for example, the time at night where the liver needs to be at rest, which means not having any new input. It's sort of like the janitor trying to clean an area where people are still walking by, like it can't do its job, right? It
It's a
needs to
nice
be it's
analogy.
the empty building, all the cleanup can happen. Um, and so we look at the when and um, and of course the what and the how, right? It's what we eat, it's how we eat it, how's our state of mind, can we put ourselves in sort of a rest and digest mode as we eat to really allow food to be the wonderful medicine that it is.
That's beautiful. Food is the wonderful medicine that it is. I love that expression. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how women talk to themselves, because you seem to focus on that a lot, which I do also. And I think that's really important. And it's often very unconscious.
It's true. And I feel like language is so important. It's how we make sense of the world. And so when we catch ourselves using sort of violent language towards ourselves,
Let's give an
and even
example of violent language, because people don't realize what that could be. Like, oh, you stupid idiot, you make a mistake. Oh, you stupid idiots. People say that all the time. Like, where did they learn to talk to about themselves like that?
indeed, and
I'm dumb. I don't know how to do this. I'm just,
yeah,
it's not like I made a mistake or I need some help, but it's like, God, I'm just an idiot. I don't know how to do this.
yeah, exactly. Or like, I can never get it right, or oh, I'm never going to feel better. Like, even that can be something where we're planting the seed where everything is listening, every cell. And we want to really, I think, pay attention to how we communicate that. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I just
Sure.
want to talk about the fact that my husband is a somatic psychotherapist. So
I
he's a
love that.
psychotherapist with body awareness, right? And we noticed early on how much of an influence nutrition has in the work that he does as he's sitting with clients. And if they're feeling really anxious, he might ask them, "So, what did you eat today? Or did you have a lot of coffee?" Or whatever, like it's
Simple
nutrition is
things.
not his scope, but he talks about it and he sees the influence it has on his clients. And in my work with clients, I see how much our psychology influences. I could give people meal plans until I'm blue, and it won't cross that
It won't
threshold
cross the
to be
blood-brain barrier
implemented.
almost. It doesn't cross. Right.
Unless they're in a state of mind where that then becomes like, oh, this is a great new thing for me to try, and it's a new way of being, and it's not a diet, it's
No,
a
it's not a diet.
way to
Diet.
love myself in a different way.
Mhm.
And so we just noticed, wow, like what we do is so intricately connected. And we developed some work called Optimizing Your Diet as an acronym for daily intake of everything. And so from that, I really started using that in my work, and I saw so much more positive change with my clients in addressing that sort of mindset and just how we talk about ourselves. And in the work I do with families to really help moms also notice, and dads as well, but I work mostly with moms, how we talk about ourselves, the influence it has on our kids' relationship to their bodies and self-image. Because if you notice, sometimes you may look at a photo, somebody shows you a photo they just took of you, and you go, oh, that's awful, delete that.
Oh, I
Oh,
look
my belly.
horrible.
Oh,
Oh,
my,
God.
all those comments. And it's like our kids are soaking all of that in, and our bodies are too. Like so it's even to that degree to like start shifting, if you look at yourself in a photo, maybe just try first to find something you love about the photo. Like just a little tip, right? To just change the way we do that, and that we can be violent toward our bodies and our health.
I think that we don't appreciate I like that you said being violent towards ourselves. That creates an enormous amount of inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
Inflammation is the foundation of all disease, especially breast cancer or any type of cancer or any Hashimoto's or thyroiditis or autoimmune or colitis or migraines or mental health challenges. Inflammation is the foundation of all of those energetic imbalances. And being violent against yourself is a very big deal. And our
Mm-hmm.
society sort of encourages, it doesn't teach women. My community is women. I'm not going to focus on men because I think
Mm-hmm.
men have similar problems, but not exactly the same and different messaging. But society doesn't teach women how to think of themselves in a non-violent or positive way. And one of my favorite examples of that is there's advertising for depression medication. And there's this one advertisement where it's sort of like a cartoon, and it's a cut through of a house, and the house is quote unquote a mess. And what does that mean? There's dishes in the sink, the beds are not made, and the woman is sitting there and she's obviously depressed. And I look at that and I think, well, when my house, sometimes there's dishes in the sink and my beds aren't made, and I'm not necessarily depressed. It's just I'm busy. I have an active life. I didn't get to it yet. But why is it, listen, look at the message. Why is it the woman's responsibility that this is happening? Where's her other half, whether that person is a man or a woman? Why are they not doing it together? And
Mm-hmm.
what made her sad? And so
Right.
then she's given a pill, and then all of a sudden the house is quote spick and span, the dishes are done, the beds are made, and she's happy. So look at the messaging from that. I mean, you can write a PhD dissertation on how that's dysfunctional and the messaging for advertising for women around this. And part of the word empowerment for me means becoming aware of those messages and how they impact our psyche, and
Mm.
taking that energy back for ourselves. It's not a woman's responsibility to keep the house clean or do the dishes, or it's make the beds. It's everybody who lives there.
Right. Oh, I love that. And thanks for bringing that up, because I do think, as we talk about like the way we communicate to ourselves, women tend to take so much more on as far as the responsibilities to make sure everybody has what they need or feels good, especially in like a family setting. And it can be really hard, and we can take on when somebody else is having a hard time, that it's our job to make it better, or that we failed if we don't do it. And I feel like it all starts with this sort of almost nagging quality of how we're raised to feel like we have to do things a certain way, or things need to seem a certain way. And getting to the bottom of that and being able to show ourselves kindness and compassion and calm, and also understanding everybody's has a sort of duty here. Everybody has their life, their path. I can walk mine and be kind to myself. And in doing that, I will be already instantly supporting those around me, because I think that serving that as a model for our children, for others around us, is really important too.
I think that's a very, very beautiful way to end our time together, Thais. How can people reach you?
Well, thank you. My website is called Nourish Together. So that's nourishtogether.com. And there's a lot of ways in there that people can see right away how they can reach out to me, work with me. And for families, I do have an online course called the Healthy Family Code. And
And
so
what's the
there's
website for
also,
that? Is that
it's,
healthyfamilycode.com?
yes, thehealthyfamilycode.com. Right now we're on waitlist mode. We'll be opening registration for the course in early September. But yeah, those are two ways to connect with me. And I'd love to hear from your listeners. Any questions about, what we discussed today? I'm happy to connect.
Thank you so much. Hold on after we're done, Thea, so you and I can finish our little conversation. And ladies, thank you so much for listening and being here. And the energy of Theas is just very calming and beautiful. And what she's helping us all with is just, I hope you can take that energy and take it into yourself and have a lovely, calm, centered, beautiful day, and be kind to yourself in how you talk to yourself and think about yourself. So it's Carol Lourie signing off for now. Thank you all for being here, and there'll be more later. Have a lovely day, everyone. Thank you, Thais.
Thank you so much.